Very pleased to say, and as you can see, the Shadow Climate Change Secretary, Ed Miliband, joins us once again. Good to see you this morning, Mr Miliband. I wonder if we just might start with that breaking news that we've been hearing, on which I'm sure you'll have a view. I mean, clearly not a huge surprise. The Chancellor perhaps talking a good game, pointing out the numbers on payroll that have increased. But when you're talking about workers' pay lagging behind because of inflation, look, it's only going to exacerbate a pretty grim situation.
Well, this is a very grim sort of moment. You know, the biggest real terms fall in pay that we've seen on record. It shows the scale of the cost of living crisis that people are facing. And it shows why Labour was right, why Keir Starmer was right yesterday to take the decisive action he did on energy bills. And, you know, that is the thing that is driving the cost of living crisis the most. And we face a choice, Neil, in this country. We can say £4,000 energy bills, which is what the forecasts are for January, £3,500 in October, that can go ahead, that can happen, or we can act. And Labour has chosen to act with a fully funded plan. And I've got to say, the Tory candidates will be out tonight in their debate. They must now answer. You know, families watching this programme will be asking, you want to be the Prime Minister of this country, tell us where you stand on the biggest issue. And I've looked at this in a lot of detail over the last few weeks. There is only one viable solution, in my view, to really protect people, to stop 50% of people falling into fuel poverty, and that is what Labour set out yesterday. And
we'll dig into the detail of it in just a second, but in terms of the popularity of the policy, I mean, you must be pretty pleased with the fact that, 75% of Conservative voters support extending the price cap for the energy price cap for another 6 months.
Yeah, and you know why this is? It's because people recognise this, that of course, the poorest in our society are going to be very badly affected, the worst affected by this. But the scale of this, Neil, is so great that in a country where 40% of people have less than £1,500 worth of savings, where, you know, we're talking about bills that we've never, ever seen before. We can't just say this is about the poorest. And this is the point. And this is the big choice that we face in the country. Are we going to act with decisiveness? And we can pay for this because, you know, we know those oil and gas giants are making billions. Now, the Conservative Party chooses not to tax those oil and gas giants at the level they should be. Yep. We're choosing a different choice.
But we're talking about a plan that will be in effect for, 6 months? You're not telling me that you expect energy prices to come down in the next year and a half?
Well, we're going to... Look, we looked at the situation we face for the coming months, for this winter, and we've acted decisively. And we've shown
we will. You keep saying that.
Yeah, and we've
a short-term plan.
Sure.
So what happens after the 6 months when energy prices continue to rise or remain at historically high levels?
Well, I look forward to coming back and talking to you about that then. But let me.
I'm asking about it now.
Well, no, and I'm going to tell you, people should be in no doubt about the fact that we will act. Look, we have shown. Look, we're a responsible opposition. We want to be
decisive
government
as well.
So we've shown that we've got a fully funded plan, and when we come forward. In the months running up to April, we will also come forward with a fully funded plan. But people should be in no doubt we will act at the scale of the emergency that we face. And I don't think you can say fairer than that. You know, people are asking, what's going to happen about this winter? We've shown what we'll do.
You're talking about the best part of £30 billion for the first 6 months. Another 6 months, likely off the back of it, another £30 billion. I mean, this is a huge amount of money.
Right, OK, well, let's take that on.
Unless you continue it in perpetuity, you know...
Well, we're not talking about perpetuity.
Obviously not in perpetuity, but unless you continue doing it until energy prices come down, you know, the idea that you're going to be able to save any money because inflation will come down is a nonsense.
Well, let's talk about whether there is the money available to act. Because it's not like this money that we're all paying in our bills is disappearing into thin air. It's going to energy companies, to oil and gas companies...
So it's the £29 billion that you're proposing. That goes direct to the energy companies as well, doesn't it?
Well, hang on a minute. We're talking about different parts of the energy sector. But what I'm saying to you is that these oil and gas companies... Rishi Sunak was saying he was going to take £5 billion from them after we'd urged him month upon month to do it. We've shown how we can get an extra £8 billion in yesterday's announcement. It's not like there isn't money available. Some people will say it's not sustainable. We can't act. We can't act to protect people. I disagree. We can act to protect people. That's what we've done. That's what we'll continue to do.
When you're talking about expenditure of now on £60 billion over, a course of 12 months, if this plan remains in place for that, why don't you simply nationalise?
Well, because that wouldn't be a solution to the problem we face.
It might prove cheaper over the long run.
Well, let me just explain what I mean by that. We have an energy company in the public sector, that's Bulb Energy. That went bust as a result of terrible government regulation. Bulb will demand this subsidy as well. So there are longer-term issues we've got to look at in relation to ownership. We've said that many times. But in terms of this crisis, in terms of this crisis we face, we want every penny to go to help cut people's bills. And that is what yesterday's announcement delivers. And I just come back to this point, Neil, because it is important. August 26th, we all know the cap goes up.
Yep.
September the 5th, the new Prime Minister gets elected. I'm saying the Conservative Party candidates, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, have got to come forward and tell us what are they going to do, not to wait until the bills of the cap's gone up, direct debits start rising, but to tell us now.
I mean, it's not as if Sir Keir Starmer stood in 2019 on a platform of perhaps nationalise. Oh, you know, he did, in fact, stand on that particular platform. I'm just wondering what the difference is between the situation in 2019, where he made, the 10 pledges in the manifesto, and he said this: public services in public hands, not making profits for shareholders, supporting common ownership of rail, mail, energy and water, ending outsourcing on NHS, local government and justice. But there. Energy.
Sure.
What's changed?
Well, we're continuing to look at what the right long-term solution is for our energy system, and that's the job. And that's the job that I'm doing. I tell you what the difference is between now and 2019. We face an absolutely massive bills crisis, and the question that people are asking is, what are you going to do now? Not what's your long-term plan in relation to the energy sector. What are you going to do now? Now, we do also have a long-term plan, and I tell you what's the most important thing is what's really going to deal with this bills crisis in the long term. It's getting off fossil fuels. It's driving forward on solar, on wind, on offshore wind, which is what we're doing.
Why then are you subsidising the energy bills of the richest in society? Why not take this £29 billion, pump it through the benefit system so it gets to people who are most in need, and at the same time encourage those who can afford to pay their bills to perhaps reduce their energy consumption?
I'll tell you exactly why.
Climate change.
I'll tell you exactly why. It's about people like the midwife in my constituency who's not on benefits, who wrote to me saying, I work, my husband works, I don't know how I'm going to be able to...
I don't think anyone would describe a midwife as rich. I'm not talking about...
Well, hang on, you just said, Neil, that we should just do it through the benefit system. And what I'm saying to you is that there's a choice here.
Okay.
You could say you're just going to do it for people on benefits. And I'm saying to you that what that would mean is that there are people in the middle, people who so often miss out, who will not get help, and who will say, we literally can't afford to pay our energy bills. We are going to face exactly the same problems that some of the poorest in a society face. And, just let me give you this one figure, which people the experts have told us, which is that if the £4,000 bill happens, £4,000 cap, we'll have more than 50% of people in our country, more than 50% of people in fuel poverty. That has never happened before in this country, and we're not willing to tolerate it.
So why is there no labour assistance for business contained in this energy strategy? What about those small and medium-sized...
Well, there is.
Go on.
There's £1 billion of help for business, targeted at the most energy-intensive industries, because they face the biggest problems, steel, ceramics and others. You're completely right. Business is facing real problems in relation to this, and we've said we have put money aside. We did it in the package that we set out in January, and we've done it again in what we unveiled yesterday.
I do want to talk, obviously, on your briefing. We're talking about record-breaking heat waves at the moment. Now we're expecting severe flooding across the United Kingdom. I mean, to what extent do we really need to put our house in order? I mean, what would the Labour Party do that is markedly different from the commitments that the government have made to sort out our kind of contribution to climate change?
Well, there's two things that we need to do. The first is we need to drive much further and much faster. Let me give you some examples. Onshore wind, we continue to have a moratorium in England on onshore wind. That is completely wrong. It goes against all logic and evidence. We have some of the worst insulated homes in Europe. We have a plan to insulate the 19 million cold, drafty homes in our country, to cut our gas use, to cut climate emissions as well. Solar energy, offshore wind, nuclear. What we need is what I call a clean energy sprint. And the government has dithered and delayed and has not acted, and we would. Just
briefly, because I know you have to go. The bosses at the water companies, I mean, you'll have read the same reports, getting those millions and pounds in bonuses, whilst, people are struggling because of water shortages around the country. Water is being wasted on an industrial scale. What would you do to sort it out?
Well, it's scandalous and it shouldn't be happening. And the regulators should have powers to act on this. And frankly, there are real questions to be asked about the regulation of the water companies in terms of what we're seeing and those bonuses and what is happening. And it is a scandal. And I think people are rightly outraged about it.
Ed Miliband, always good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much.